Hello friends and neighbors, I am making homemade mustard and also homemade potato salad today. You want to come see? To make my mustard, I start with 1 cup yellow mustard seed, 2/3 cups of water, 1.5 cups white wine vinegar. I also add a half teaspoon turmeric powder and 2 teaspoons pink Himalayan salt. Place the lid on the jar, give it a good shake, and just let it sit overnight. The following day, I pour all of this into a good blender. And I'm going to blend it for about 2 to 3 minutes. I want to make sure that this is as smooth as possible, although I don't mind some of those seeds being whole inside my mustard. So you can see it comes to a really nice, smooth, creamy consistency. After it's blended, I pour it in a small saucepan, and I start with the temperature on the stove at about medium high, but then I usually end up lowering it a little bit as I go along. I want to cook this for a little bit, but not for very long, just basically bring it to a boil. Now at this point, you're ready to just remove it from heat, put it in a container. It can store in your refrigerator right away, but I like to can mine because it makes quite a bit. So I'm going to pour it inside my canning jars, remove the air bubbles, make sure that I have a 1/2 inch headspace, clean the rim really well with a wet cloth, place the lid on, secure the ring, and then carefully place them in my canner in some hot water. Now I'm going to need to add enough hot water on top of this to make sure that it's covering those jars about 1 to 2 inches. Put on the lid, turn on the stove to high, and let it come to a good boil. Once it's boiling really well, I'm going to set my timer to 10 minutes. Oh yeah, and turn down the heat to medium. Once the timer goes off, I'm going to turn off the stove and just carefully remove this from the heat and then let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. And I just want the temperature to come down gradually and naturally. Once it's cooled down a little bit, carefully remove the jars from your canner. And I just use a cutting board to place my jars on it and resist the urge to remove that water that's on top of the jars. And I just let it sit overnight. Now for the potato salad, I start with about 10 potatoes. These are not very big, but I use either gold or red or a combination of the potatoes. Peel them, wash them really well, place them in a good sized pot and cover them up with water, and I just use enough water to go about 1 inch over the potatoes. I use 1 tablespoon of salt, place it on the stove top, set my temperature to high, well, medium high, and bring it up to a boil. Once it comes to a good roaring boil, I lower my temperature to low and set the lid on and just let it come to a slow simmer. And I'll simmer this for about 30 minutes and then check and see if my potatoes are done. I want them to be fork tender, which means the fork will penetrate through them. They're nice and tender, but they're not falling apart. Once I know they're cooked, then I will strain the water off of the potatoes. And then just set them to the side and let them cool down. Once they've cooled, I will slice these up. Now you can cut these into cubes. I like to slice mine in thinner slices. place them in a large bowl. And I like some onion in my potato salad. So I'm just gonna cut off the ends off of this onion, cut it in half, make sure that I peel it, and then cut some really thin slices. You can probably see through the slices how thin they are. You can see the knife through it. So I only use about 1/4 of an onion. For my dressing, I use 1 cup of homemade mayonnaise and 2 tablespoons of mustard. And I like to mix this up. It will mix in my salad better than if I add them separately. I sprinkle just a dash of pepper and a little bit of salt. I have salt in the mayonnaise and also in the mustard, so I don't want to over salt them. And I start off just using about half of the dressing because I don't want to make it too mayonnaise-y, if that's a word. So I give it a good stir just to see if it needs any more. And I ended up using the whole thing, but just use it to taste, whatever your preference is. The homemade mustard really made a big difference in this, and so did the homemade mayonnaise. And I have a recipe for the homemade mayonnaise. I'll have the link to that in the bottom of this video in the description. So look at that. Doesn't that look yummy? Guys, it was so good. Thank you so much for coming along. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video.